And we turn now to the chairman of the National Republican Congressional Committee, Minnesota Congressman Tom Emmer. Good morning. Good to have you here in person. I have to ask you about what we've just been talking about here. How concerned are you about the risk of political violence, and how should it be minimized?
There's no place for violence, period, in our society. Physical violence or violence against someone's property. I think you've already covered that here this morning. The incident in San Francisco, tragic as it is, I think we need some more information about it, but we should all be feeling for Paul Pelosi and his family. Hopefully there'll be 100% recovery.
And just to be abundantly clear, you denounce any kind of attack on the Pelosi family.
Absolutely. There should be no attacks, period. There should be no violence in our society. Again, whether it's political or otherwise, there's no place for it in a civilized society.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I want to ask you about something in our CBS News poll that shows that even as Republicans are poised to lead this contest and take control of the House, we see suspicion, specifically among Republicans, about the voting process. A big majority of Republicans support the idea of private citizens challenging election officials as they process and report vote counts on election night. We're seeing that on the screen now. 2/3 of Republicans support the idea of private citizens patrolling around ballot drop boxes and polling places. This is just Republicans. We don't see this with Democrats. We do not see this with independents. Would you urge private citizens not to patrol polling places?
Well, you picked the words, Margaret. I would say that it is Republicans, Democrats, independents. All American citizens are very acutely aware, as your previous guest just mentioned, about our election process. I think this is going to be a very good election because people are awake, they're paying attention. They should volunteer as poll watchers. It's a state-based system. Whatever your state requires and allows, you should definitely be involved, and I think it's going to help the process.
And just to be abundantly clear, poll watching is different than voter intimidation, which is unlawful.
Nobody should be intimidated when they're exercising their most precious right to vote.
So when you see video, as we have seen in a place like in Arizona, where you see individuals with tactical gear, when you see individuals with weapons outside drop boxes, how do you classify that?
Again, no one should feel intimidated when they're exercising their right to vote.
That is intimidating?
You've got stories on both sides of the aisle. You've got stories in many different states about how people have felt as though their right was infringed on. I think cooler heads need to prevail.
Yeah.
I really think we're going to have a good election. I think you've got 15 million plus that have already participated in early voting across this country. I think you're going to have a big turnout in 9 days from now on the election. And I think, again, Republicans, Democrats, and others are well aware of the issues that we had during COVID. People were stepping up and trying to do things to make sure we were protected and safe, but they were adjusting election laws on the fly. I think a lot of that has been resolved. I think you're going to see a really good experience in 9 days.
Okay. So you would urge citizens not to patrol polling places?
Again, I urge everyone, get involved.
Okay.
Whatever your state allows, get involved. Volunteer. Exactly what your previous guest said.
Because I want to
ask, of the process.
I want to ask you, because in this bulletin it also talks about a linkage in drawing and undermining confidence in elections because of 2020. And you are on this list that we have of 307 Republicans running for office who have raised doubts about the integrity of the election. I mean, they're drawing a direct line here between sowing distrust then and what we are seeing right now. Do you regret sowing doubts yourself?
What you're referring to, I've never sowed doubts about the election. I have definitely raised questions.
You signed on to this Texas amicus brief that went to the Supreme Court to overturn it.
What it said was, Margaret, what that said, that amicus brief, is that a lot of people, governors, attorneys general, secretaries of state, took unilateral action during COVID, changing election laws themselves. So you don't regret again, if I could finish, changing election laws themselves to try and make sure that we were safe while we exercised our right to vote. That particular amicus brief, all it said was that we need to reaffirm that state legislatures and legislatures alone make their election laws. So as we go forward, once we're out of COVID, we have to go back to that.
So to be clear, you don't consider yourself an election denier?
Absolutely not.
And Joe Biden is the legitimately elected president of the United States of America.
He has been sworn. He's serving. He is the president of the United States.
He is the president of the United States.
And we've got an election in 9
by
days. We've got an election in 9 days that we've been working on for the last 2 years. You reported in the intro that 8 out of 10 Americans in that same poll that you're referring to are concerned with where this country is. They say it's out of control.
Right, but you're not undermining. You're not meaning to undermine confidence in the 2020 election.
8 out of 10 Americans right now think we're on the wrong track. That's what they're going to be voting on.
I know, and I would
days.
love to talk about something other than people being worried for their lives. But unfortunately, that's where we are. I want to ask you about this when it comes to political violence. On your Twitter feed, you posted this video we're going to show just a few days ago where you're firing a gun and it says, "Enjoyed exercising my Second Amendment rights. Hashtag fire Pelosi." Why is there a gun in a political ad at all?
It wasn't an ad.
Hashtag
I was
or a tweet.
I was tweeting out something that I had
Hashtag
just
fire
done.
Pelosi with a weapon.
Well, now
Wouldn't a pink slip be more fitting if it's about firing her?
It's interesting, Margaret.
Why a gun?
It's interesting, Margaret, that we're talking about this morning when a couple of years back, when a Bernie Sanders supporter shot Steve Scalise.
Which was horrendous
when a Bernie
and
Sanders
horrific,
supporter
which is
shot
why we
Steve
should be
Scalise,
not
I never heard
putting
you or
weapons.
anyone else in the media trying to blame Democrats for what happened. We need to stay focused on what we're all doing.
We did extensive coverage of what happened to Steve Scalise. There's extensive
Nobody
news coverage,
tried to equate Democrats' rhetoric. People that
I'm not
say
talking about your rhetoric. I'm talking about what you posted. You're shooting a gun. Our viewers just saw it.
Yeah, right.
Hashtag fire Pelosi.
Exercising our Second Amendment rights, having
That's
fun.
not a debate about the
shooting a
Second
gun.
Amendment.
Yeah.
That's not a debate about the Second Amendment.
Yes, it
Hashtag
is.
fire Pelosi.
Yes, it is. I'm
Do you
running
not
the campaign
understand that that is
operation for the
suggestive to
Republicans.
people who are in a bad state and in this current environment, how risky it is? As you're talking about the importance of lowering the rhetoric.
I disagree with you,
Why do you leave that up?
Again, I never saw anyone after Steve Scalise was shot by a Bernie Sanders supporter trying to equate Democrat rhetoric with those actions. Please don't do that.
Okay. Looking at your candidates, Republican candidates have spent more than $116 million on ads that mention Speaker Pelosi by name in this cycle. If this is about the issues, why don't you make it about the issues? Why not depersonalize it?
It is absolutely about the issues. It's about the fact that we have double-digit inflation, exploding cost of living. We've got a crime wave across this country that is the direct result.
In this moment, we are 8 days out. Don't you think this needs to change? Why not pull some of these ads? Why not just delete your tweet?
I'm sure people like to talk about anything but what the Democrats have done to this country, which, quite frankly, is exploding cost of living, a crime wave in our major cities that is the result of this defund the police nonsense and cashless bail. I mean, you look at New York City, where you put someone in jail at 9 p.m. for assaulting someone on the street, and they're back out on the street at 9 a.m. committing crimes again. You look at my state of Minnesota. Minneapolis has 6,000 assaults since the beginning of the year, Margaret. Those are the issues that are top of mind for every voter in this country.
Yeah.
That's why they're going to show up on November 8th, and that's why Republicans are going to win in the midterms.
That's what our projections are showing. But I would suggest more pink slips, fewer weapons in our ads in this environment. Sir, thank you for joining us.